An
Is the
8-year-old girl
biker
woke up in
man
a
still
hospital
out
ICU and asked the nurse a question that would change everything. Is the biker man still out there? She was talking about someone she'd met once, for 10 minutes, 7 months ago. But she'd remembered him. And when 223 bikers showed up at that hospital, they discovered why she'd been holding on to his memory. Her legal guardian had stolen nearly everything her mother left her, and he was 11 days away from taking the rest. $364,000. This is how they stopped him. If those words hit you the way they hit me, subscribe, because this story is only just beginning. Drop your city in the comments and stay with me, now. Back to that night. Is the biker man still out there? The question came out scratched and small. Each word arrived separately, with a pause between, the way speech sounds after an intubation tube has been removed too recently. Lula Bell Harmon had been a hospital social worker for 22 years. She'd heard a lot of last questions. Questions about pain medication. Questions about when someone could go home. Questions about whether a parent was coming back. This one was different. The night aide, a woman named Darlene, who'd been on pediatric rotation for 6 months, stood holding a piece of paper. She'd found it tucked under Beatrice's pillow during the 3 a.m. check, the way you might find a stuffed animal or a photograph. But it wasn't either of those things. It was a spelling test. 2nd grade. The front side showed corrections in red ink. Receive, marked wrong. Receive, written above it, in neat teacher handwriting. The paper had been folded and unfolded so many times the creases had gone soft. Darlene turned it over. The back showed a pencil drawing. A large figure on a motorcycle. Wings on the jacket. Not detailed, just the shape of them, the way a child draws wings when they're working from memory instead of a picture. A smile drawn as a single curved line. And across the chest, in careful block letters that had been traced over twice to make them darker. Forrest. In the lower right corner, written smaller and with more pressure, like the hand that wrote it was running out of time, 364,000. Incapacitated. Spring. Lula Bell took the paper from Darlene without speaking, held it under the desk lamp in the social work office, looked at it for 2 hours. At 5:17 a.m., she made a phone call. Forrest Tanner had learned how to wake up fast in places where waking up slow could get you killed. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 2004 and 2007, both as 11B infantry. The skill stayed with him long after he came home. The phone rang once. His voice was flat and awake within 2 seconds. Yeah? Mr. Tanner? The voice on the other end was careful, female, unfamiliar. My name is Lula Bell Harmon. I'm a social worker at Hartfield Community Hospital. I have a little girl in the ICU. She's been asking for a biker. She has a drawing with your name on it. Forrest sat up. Boots by the door. A discipline, not a habit. Flannel shirt on the chair where he'd left it. How old? 8. Silence. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. She may not have more than a few days, Lula Bell said. I need to know if you remember her. Forrest closed his eyes. Opened them. Plate number 7, GWK-284. Blue Chevy Tahoe. I've had that number for 7 months. He could hear Lula Bell exhale on the other end of the line. Who has her now? He asked. The same man whose car that is. Gerald Holcomb. He's her legal guardian. He petitioned probate court 4 months after she was placed with him. Forrest was already standing. The scar along his left jawline, 14 years old, highway accident, healed clean, caught the light from the bedside lamp. "I'm already coming," he said. "And I'm not the only one." He hung up. Dialed again without putting on shoes. Lorne Garrett, road name Millstone, age 57, Waukesha chapter founder's right hand, answered on the second ring. Forrest's voice came out shaking in a way that had nothing to do with cold. "I need you to listen to me and not ask questions." "Done." 8-year-old girl, pediatric ICU, Hartfield Community Hospital, foster system. I need everyone at the hospital in 2 hours. 3 seconds of silence. "We'll be there in 90 minutes. Forrest hung up and looked at the phone in his hand. It was 5:31 a.m. The parking lot was empty. The maintenance truck's exhaust rose straight up in the still air. 28 degrees, no wind. Sound would carry farther than it should this morning. He put the phone face down on the nightstand. They were coming. That was the only fact that mattered right now. 7 months ago, Forrest had walked out of a hardware store on the east side of Hartfield with a bag of bolts and a deli sandwich from the counter inside. Turkey and Swiss. Light on the mayo. He ate the same sandwich every time. There was a little girl sitting on the curb outside. She wasn't crying. She wasn't calling for help. She was watching a line of ants cross a crack in the pavement, her knees pulled up to her chest, one sock missing. The left foot had a white sock with faded yellow ducks. The right foot was bare. Forrest sat down on the curb next to her without being invited. Didn't ask her name. Didn't say anything. He broke the sandwich in half. Set one half on the napkin between them. She looked at it. Looked at him. Looked at the sandwich again. Took it with both hands. They sat there for maybe 8 minutes. The ants kept moving. The sandwich disappeared in small bites. She counted them. Forrest could see her lips moving, the way kids do when they're trying to make something last. When the door to the hardware store opened, a man came out. Tall, clean-shaved, chinos and a fleece zip-up. The kind of man who owns a lint roller and uses it. He walked over to the girl and took her by the upper arm to guide her to the car. Not gently, not rough enough to leave a mark where anyone could see it. But hard enough. Fast enough. The kind of grip that isn't guidance. The girl didn't say anything, didn't look back. Forrest watched the car pull out. Blue Chevy Tahoe. License plate 7GWK 284. He typed it into his phone before he got on his bike. He had no plan. He just knew. The Hartfield Community Hospital parking lot at 7:43 a.m. looked like something that didn't belong in Wisconsin in November. 88 motorcycles lined the asphalt in perfect formation. Not haphazard. Not aggressive. Disciplined rows, each bike 2 feet from the next. Engines off. By 11:17 a.m., the count was 223 Waukesha chapter, 3 neighboring chapters. Word had spread through a network that doesn't need cell towers. The hospital administrator, a woman named Patricia Voss, who'd worked in healthcare management for 19 years, came out to the parking lot at 11:34 a.m. Millstone was waiting for her. He didn't stand when she approached. He was sitting on the tailgate of a pickup truck, arms crossed, wearing a cut that had seen 19 years of weather. Hell's Angels patch on the back, American flag on the right sleeve. Patricia stopped 6 feet away. "I need to know what's happening here," she said. Millstone looked at her. Didn't rush, didn't smile. "We're here for Beatrice Whitmore, room 314. Pediatric ICU. You can't all go up there. We're not asking to go up there, Millstone said. We're asking you to make sure she's safe. And we're asking you to tell us when the people who hurt her are in custody. We'll wait as long as it takes. Patricia looked at the rows of motorcycles. 223 men. Cuts and boots, and the kind of quiet that comes from discipline, not anger. What do you need from me? She asked. Millstone told her. She agreed to both. Inside room 314, Beatrice opened her eyes when she heard engines below. The window blind was cracked open. She could see part of the parking lot from where she lay. Rows of motorcycles. Men in leather. The wings on their backs. Forrest was in the chair beside the bed. He'd been there since 6:51 a.m. He didn't touch her. He waited for her to move first. She didn't move yet, but she kept looking at his jacket. Her voice came out as a dry pull of air. He used to put me in the basement when I cried. I tried real hard not to cry. Forrest didn't say anything. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands together, listening. Beatrice's right hand was tucked against the left side of her ribcage. She'd been holding it there since admission, protecting the ribs without thinking about it anymore. He said nobody would believe me because kids always make things up. He said my mom didn't leave me anything. She paused, looked at the ceiling, counted tiles, a habit now. 47. She'd told the night nurse. The nurse had counted. Beatrice was right. But she did, Beatrice said. She left me the map. Forrest waited. Beatrice reached under the pillow, both hands careful of the IV, pulled out the drawing, the spelling test, and turned it over. The numbers were there. 364,000. Incapacitated. Spring. She passed it to Forrest with both hands, the way you pass something fragile. I heard him tell Miss Beatrice I won't get better. He said $364,000. And incapacitated. I don't know that word. I wrote it on my hand, but they washed it off when they did the IV. Forrest read the corner, looked at it for a long moment, set the drawing on the bedside table, facing her, portrait side up. So it was the first thing she'd see when she opened her eyes again. You kept the number, he said. That's what I needed. He didn't tell her it was going to be fine. He told her what was true. There are 223 of us in that parking lot right now. None of us are going anywhere until this is done. Beatrice fell asleep 12 minutes later. Just like that, mid-sentence, the sedation pulling her under again. Her breathing evened out. The monitor beside the bed kept its rhythm. Forrest didn't move from the chair. He looked at the drawing on the bedside table. The wings on the jacket. The name traced twice. The numbers in the corner that a second grader had memorized because she knew they mattered even if she didn't know why. $364,000. Incapacitated. Spring. He pulled out his phone. Texted Millstone one sentence. Need everyone who knows legal or CPS war room 1 hour. The response came back in 11 seconds. On it. 43 men responded without a single question. That wasn't unusual for this club. When it matters, words are a formality. The war room wasn't a room. It was the back corner of a diner 6 blocks from the hospital. Ruthie's kitchen, the kind of place that's been in the same family for 40 years and doesn't blink when 24 bikers walk in at noon on a Tuesday. Forrest sat at the head of the table. Millstone to his right. 4 others filled in the rest. Deadfall. Real name Eric Vance, age 43, former Waukesha County Sheriff's Deputy for 17 years. Left after a use of force policy disagreement that nobody talks about and everybody respects. He knew every detective in 3 counties. The arrest warrant, when the time came, would go through him. Cinder, real name Marcus Webb, age 37, combat medic with 2 tours in Iraq under his belt. Ran the chapter's informal medical triage network. He'd already spoken to the ICU attending physician twice that morning. The medical update he'd translated for the parking lot was accurate and calm. Nobody panicked when Cinder was the one explaining. Fieldstone, real name David Torres, age 46, former high school guidance counselor for 9 years. He knew the foster care system from the school side, knew which forms triggered mandatory reporting, knew which administrators hid behind process. He'd quit 3 years ago when a student he'd flagged ended up dead anyway. He didn't quit caring. Salt Lick, real name Aaron Chen, age 33, youngest of the group, IT background with 4 years at a data firm before the club. He had a laptop open in front of him and 3 browser tabs already running. Public records, probate court filings, property registries. Millstone looked at Forrest, waited. Forrest set the drawing, the spelling test, on the table between them. Portrait side up first, then flipped it over. The numbers faced the group. She wrote this 3 weeks ago, Forrest said. She heard Gerald Holcomb, her legal guardian, talking about $364,000. She heard the word incapacitated, but didn't know what it meant. She heard spring. He paused. Let them look at the paper. She's 8 years old. She weighs 43 pounds. She should weigh 57. The difference is visible in her wrists. Cinder's jaw tightened. Didn't say anything. She's got a subdural hematoma with cerebral edema, bilateral rib fractures, left ribs 4, 5, and 6, in varying stages of healing. Severe malnutrition. A sutured laceration above her right ear that somebody closed at home 9 days ago. No ER visit. Someone stitched a child's head wound in a kitchen and didn't take her to a hospital. Fieldstone set his coffee cup down. The sound was deliberate. Forrest continued. ICP readings have increased 11% over the last 6 hours. Right-hand grip strength is declining. The doctor said we have 48 to 72 hours before secondary brain injury becomes irreversible. Silence. Salt Lick, Forrest said. I need you to find out what $364,000 means. Probate records, trust documents, anything tied to Beatrice May Whitmore or Gerald Owen Holcomb. Salt Lick nodded once, fingers already moving. Deadfall. I need you to find out if there's a case file, CPS, police reports, anything. On it. Fieldstone, school records, teachers who might have seen something, anyone who tried to help. Fieldstone pulled out his phone, started typing. Millstone leaned back in his chair. He'd worked CPS intake for 6 years before quitting in disgust in 2011. He knew exactly what they were going to find before they found it. He could see it in the pattern already. The weight loss, the stitched wound, the basement Beatrice had mentioned. This wasn't neglect. This was a plan. How long has she been with the Holcombs? Millstone asked. 8 months, Forrest said. Placed after her mother died. Cardiac arrest. No warning. Beatrice went into emergency foster care within 72 hours. Millstone's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. And Holcomb became her guardian when? 4 months after placement. Fast, Millstone said. Quiet, not a question. The coffee went cold. Nobody noticed. Fieldstone made 3 calls. The third one connected. Mrs. Ruthie Mae Borden had taught 2nd grade at Hartfield Elementary for 16 years. She lived 4 blocks from the school in a house she'd inherited from her parents. She drove the same route to work every morning, left on Maple, right on Foster, straight until the parking lot. She'd noticed Beatrice the first week of school. A quiet child. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from practice, not temperament. Beatrice counted things: ceiling tiles, pencils in the cup on the teacher's desk, steps from her seat to the door. Mrs. Borden had seen that before. Counting is what children do when they're trying to control something in a world that feels uncontrollable. By October, Beatrice had bruises, small ones at first. On the upper arms, oval-shaped, the size of an adult's grip. Mrs. Borden asked about them during recess. Beatrice said she'd bumped into a door, then changed it to a table, then went quiet and stopped answering. Mrs. Borden filed a CPS report on October 14th. Documented the bruising. Documented the weight loss she'd noticed since school started. Documented that Beatrice flinched when anyone raised their voice, even when the words were neutral. The report was logged, assigned to an overloaded intake caseworker. A home visit was conducted 9 days later, October 23rd. Gerald Holcomb was present for the entire interview. Beatrice sat on the couch 3 feet away from him. The caseworker asked if everything was okay at home. Beatrice looked at Gerald. Gerald smiled. Warm, patient, the smile of a man who'd been through this before and understood the process. Beatrice said yes. Everything was fine. The case was closed on October 27th. Notation: insufficient evidence to substantiate. Mrs. Borden received a follow-up email thanking her for her vigilance and reminding her that false reports could have serious consequences for families in crisis. She never filed another report. When Fieldstone called her that Tuesday morning, her hands shook as she spoke. Her voice broke on the word bruises. She couldn't meet his eyes. Even over the phone, he could hear it in the way she paused before answering. "I knew something was wrong," she said. I didn't want to be the one who made it worse." She added one detail the original report hadn't captured. The last time she saw Beatrice, 11 days before the hospital admission, Beatrice had asked to stay after class. She'd stood by Mrs. Borden's desk and said very quietly, "If I draw you a picture, will you keep it safe?" Mrs. Borden said yes. Beatrice never came back to school. Fieldstone relayed the information to the table. Every word. When he finished, Millstone spoke. His voice was flat, controlled. "Wrong one," he said. "Inadequate investigation. CPS took the report, conducted a visit with the perpetrator present, and closed the case when the child, who was 3 feet from her abuser, said she was fine. That's not failure. That's procedure working exactly as designed." Nobody disagreed. Salt Lick looked up from his laptop. "I found the probate petition." The table went quiet. Gerald Owen Holcomb petitioned the court 4 months after Beatrice's placement to be named her legal guardian. The petition was granted, but there's more. He turned the screen so they could see it. Beatrice's maternal grandfather left a land trust in his estate, structured to pass to his only grandchild, Beatrice, at age 21. The trust holds land and liquid assets totaling $364,100. Forrest leaned forward. Holcomb petitioned probate court to be named trustee for administrative purposes. Salt Lick continued. The petition was unopposed, no family to contest it. It was approved in a 7-minute hearing. "Who approved it?" Deadfall asked. "Judge Raymond Kellner, Waukesha County Circuit Court." "When?" Month 5 of Beatrice's placement. July. Millstone closed his eyes. Opened them. What's the trustee authority? Saltlick scrolled. Read. Holcomb inserted language establishing himself as successor trustee with distribution authority in the event the beneficiary becomes permanently incapacitated or predeceases the trust term. The room went still. Cinder spoke first. His voice was careful, measured. If Beatrice is declared medically incapacitated for more than 30 days, Holcomb can file for expedited distribution of the trust. Correct, Saltlick said. How long has she been in the ICU? 19 days. Forrest did the math in his head, felt something cold settle in his chest. 11 days, he said. We have 11 days before the 30-day window opens. Millstone looked at him. Didn't blink. He's not trying to let her die, Millstone said. He's waiting for her to be incapacitated long enough to file. Now, you might be thinking this is about greed, that Gerald Holcomb saw a vulnerable child and an inheritance and made a cold calculation. That's part of it. But it's not the whole story. Because what Saltlick found next changed the shape of the room. He clicked to a second tab. Property records. Bank statements pulled from public storage registries cross-referenced with Holcomb's business address. Holcomb has a storage unit, Saltlick said. 814 Industrial Parkway. He's had it for 3 years. It's registered under his insurance business, LLC. What's in it? Forrest asked. I don't know yet, but the rental history shows he added a second unit 8 months ago, right after Beatrice was placed with him. Deadfall stood up. I'll make a call. He walked outside. Came back 4 minutes later. County storage facilities require a warrant to access unless the renter consents, but the registry is public. Holcomb's unit has been accessed 6 times in the last 3 months, all late-night entries, all logged between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. What's he storing? Fieldstone asked. Deadfall shook his head. We'll need a warrant, but I know a judge who'll sign one if we have enough for probable cause. Millstone looked at Forrest. We're not there yet, but we're close. Forrest already knew what he was going to do. He'd known since the moment Beatrice said, "Is the biker man still out there?" The only question was how fast. By 2:47 p.m., the parking lot had become something the local news would struggle to describe accurately. 223 motorcycles, arranged in disciplined rows, engines off, men standing in small groups, arms crossed, speaking quietly. No signs, no chanting. No aggression. A peaceful stand. The kind of discipline that comes from military training, not anger. When Patricia Voss, the hospital administrator, walked out at 3:15 p.m. to give an update, she found Millstone exactly where he'd been 4 hours earlier. Same spot. Same position. Like he'd been carved there. We're monitoring Beatrice's condition closely, Patricia said. Her ICP readings stabilized in the last hour. That's good news. Cinder translated for the men within earshot, used the exact medical terminology, explained what ICP meant, intracranial pressure, and why stabilization mattered. Kept it accurate. Kept it calm. Nobody cheered. These weren't men who cheered. They just listened, absorbed the information, waited for what came next. Deadfall made contact with her at 3:42 p.m. Norma Jean Caldwell, age 61, had lived on Quarry Bend Drive for 11 years. She knew every house on the street. Knew which dogs barked at the mail carrier. Knew which families kept their Christmas lights up past New Year's. She lived 2 houses down from 523 Quarry Bend Drive. The Holcomb house. She'd heard screaming 6 weeks ago. It was a Wednesday. November 3rd, 11:17 p.m. She remembered the time because she'd looked at the clock before deciding whether to call. The screaming lasted approximately 9 minutes. High-pitched. Desperate. The kind of sound that carries through basement windows even when they're closed. Norma Jean called the non-emergency police line at 11:26 p.m. She gave her name, her address, the address she was calling about. She described what she'd heard, sustained screaming from what sounded like the basement area of the adjacent home. The responding officer arrived at 11:41 p.m. 14 minutes. He spoke with Gerald Holcomb at the front door. Did not enter the home. Gerald pointed to his hospital volunteer badge sitting on the entryway table, deliberately placed, Norma Jean would realize later, so it was visible through the sidelight window. He mentioned a night terror episode. He offered to let the officer hear that Beatrice was asleep by calling up to her from the hallway. The officer declined to enter, noted no visible concern in his report. The next morning, 2 neighborhood watch captains, both friends of Gerald's, drove past the Holcomb house and stopped in. By evening, Gerald was on the phone. Norma Jean heard him through her kitchen window, his voice carried in the cold air, clear enough to make out words. She's got a history of unfounded calls. You know how some people are. The patrol had warned him. 1 week later, Norma Jean received a letter from the neighborhood watch coordinator. It thanked her for her civic engagement and reminded her that repeated unfounded complaints can create liability concerns for the reporting party. She never called again. When deadfall reached her that Tuesday afternoon, she was sitting in her kitchen with her hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea. She'd been sitting there since she saw the motorcycles arrive that morning, watching through the window, wondering if she should say something, afraid of being labeled a nuisance again. Her voice shook as she spoke. I heard her screaming, Norma Jean said. I called the police. They came. They talked to him at the door. They left. And then I got a letter telling me to stop calling. She paused. Her hands tightened around the cup. I saw her once after that. She was in the backyard, just standing there. It was 34 degrees and she didn't have a coat. I almost went over. But I didn't. I didn't want to make it worse. She looked at Deadfall, met his eyes for the first time. I should have done more. Deadfall didn't tell her it was okay. He didn't tell her it wasn't her fault. He told her what was true. You're doing more now, and we need you to tell this to someone who can use it. She nodded, hands still shaking. Deadfall added her testimony to the file. Every detail. The call. The police report. The warning letter from the neighborhood watch. Rung 3, he thought. Systemic suppression. The one adult who tried to help was neutralized by the same network that was supposed to protect the block. Salt Lick worked in silence for 90 minutes. 3 browser tabs, public records database, probate court filings, property transaction histories. At 4:18 p.m., he found the email. Not buried. Not hidden. Public record. Filed with the probate court as part of a motion attachment 3 weeks ago. Subject line. Re-expedited distribution. Incapacitation protocol. From Gerald Owen Holcomb. To Thomas R. Patterson, Esquimalt. Waukesha County Probate Attorney. Date, October 19th. Salt Lick opened it. Read the first line. Stopped. set the laptop down, looked at Forrest. "You need to see this." Forrest leaned over. Read. "Tom, following up on our conversation last week. The probate attorney says we can file for expedited distribution if she's been declared medically incapacitated for more than 30 days. I want to confirm the timeline and make sure we're ready to move when the window opens. Current status? Beatrice has been experiencing significant medical complications. Her care team has indicated the prognosis is poor. If her condition continues to decline, we anticipate reaching the 30-day incapacitation threshold by early December. Once the trust releases, the land goes to market in spring. That's $364,000 before taxes. I'd like to coordinate with the listing agent to ensure we're ready for the April-May selling window. Please advise on next steps for the distribution filing." "Best." Gerald Forrest read it twice. Then a third time. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Millstone leaned over, read it over Forrest's shoulder. When he finished, he set his hand flat on the table. Exhaled slowly through his nose. "He's not trying to let her die," Millstone said. Quiet. Controlled. He's waiting for her to be incapacitated long enough to file, and he's coordinating with a real estate agent for a spring sale. Cinder looked up from his phone. She's been admitted for 19 days. "Which means he has 11 days until the window opens," Fieldstone said. The math was simple. Brutal. Absolute. Deadfall pulled out his phone, started typing. "I'm calling Judge Reese. We have probable cause now. This email is a documented plan tied to a financial motive. Combined with the medical evidence, the witness testimony, and the trust documents, we can get an emergency motion filed today." Forrest looked at the laptop screen. At Gerald's name in the "from" field. At the word "incapacitated." The same word Beatrice had written on the back of her spelling test because she didn't know what it meant, but knew it mattered. "What else is in the filing?" he asked Saltlick. Saltlick scrolled. "Bank records," he said. "Trust account activity. Holcomb has made 6 withdrawals in the last 3 months. Total, $43,700. For what? The motion says property maintenance, but there are no corresponding invoices on file." Millstone's jaw tightened. "Pull the dates of the withdrawals." Saltlick clicked. Read. August 12th, September 4th, September 29th, October 14th, October 31st, November 2nd. "November 2nd?" Cinder repeated. "That's 4 days after Beatrice was admitted to the ICU." Silence. Forrest looked at the screen, at the withdrawal dated November 2nd, 4 days into Beatrice's hospitalization, while she was intubated, while her ICP was climbing, while the doctors were saying 48 to 72 hours. Gerald had withdrawn $8,200 from her trust account. "Where did it go?" Forrest asked. Saltlick pulled up the bank transaction details. "Purchase," he said. "Vendor, Hartfield Motorsports. Description, 2022 Polaris Ranger side-by-side, a TV." The table went quiet. Fieldstone spoke first. His voice was flat. "He bought an ATV with her money while she was dying." "Not just an ATV," Millstone said. "He's been using her trust as a personal bank account for 3 months. $43,000. Property maintenance. Spring land sale. He's been planning this since July." Forrest stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot. 223 motorcycles. Men who'd driven from 3 states because one child needed someone to answer. He turned back to the table. "Keep digging," he said. I want to know where every dollar went." Salt Lick went back to the records. At 5:03 p.m., he found the second document: County Health Department records, death certificates, property disposition files, a name Forrest didn't recognize: Della Faye Pruitt. Age 9. Date of death: August 14th, 2022. Cause of death: respiratory failure following aspiration pneumonia. Certified as natural causes. Legal guardian at time of death: Gerald Owen Holcomb. Salt Lick stopped scrolling. "Forrest," he said. "There was another child." The folder on the health department clerk's desk was thin when Fieldstone arrived at 5:47 p.m. The clerk, a woman named Mavis who'd worked there for 22 years, pulled it without being asked twice. She'd seen the news vans in the hospital parking lot. She'd heard about the bikers. She knew what this was about before Fieldstone said a word. "Della Pruitt," she said. Opened the file. Inside: medical examiner's report, foster care placement history, insurance payout documentation. Fieldstone read standing up. Couldn't sit. Della Faye Pruitt had been placed with Gerald and Beatrice Holcomb in March 2020. Previous ward: emergency placement following parental rights termination. She died 28 months later, August 14th, 2022. Official cause: respiratory failure, aspiration pneumonia, natural causes. The medical examiner who'd signed the certificate was Dr. Raymond Kellner, no relation to the judge, but a name Fieldstone recognized from Community Health Board minutes. Dr. Kellner had written a character reference for Gerald Holcomb in an unrelated county matter 8 months prior to Della's death. Fieldstone kept reading. Della's weight at time of death: 61 pounds. Age 9. Should have been 84 pounds minimum for her height and age. 23 pounds underweight. She'd been pulled from school 3 weeks before her death. Cited reason: recovery from respiratory illness. No doctor's note on file. The certifying physician noted no suspicious circumstances. The foster care office closed the case within 2 weeks. Standard procedure for natural death of a ward. Insurance payout: $163,400. Combination of Social Security dependent survivor payments and a children's term life policy purchased by Gerald Holcomb 3 months into Della's placement. Beneficiary: Gerald Owen Holcomb, legal guardian. Fieldstone photographed every page, sent them to Salt Lick, called Forrest. "He did this before," Fieldstone said. "Della Pruitt, 2020 to 2022. Same withdrawal from school weeks before death. Same weight loss pattern. Same guardian beneficiary insurance structure. She died 28 months after placement. He collected $163,400. Forrest closed his eyes. "How old was she?" 9. The line went quiet. "Forrest?" "I'm here," Forrest said. His voice was flat, controlled in the way that means the opposite. "Send everything to Deadfall. We're filing the motion tonight." Deadfall reached her at 6:14 p.m. Wanda Sue Farrell, age 44, had been a CPS caseworker for 11 years before her transfer. She'd handled Beatrice's case, briefly, 3 months ago. She'd attempted an unannounced home visit on September 12th. Protocol when prior complaints show concerning patterns. She'd arrived without calling ahead. Knocked on the door of 523 Quarry Bend Drive at 10:17 a.m. Gerald answered, smiled, polite, warm. "Ms. Farrell, what a surprise. I'm here to conduct a wellness check on Beatrice. Wanda Sue said. "May I come in?" Gerald's smile didn't change. "I appreciate your diligence," he said, "but Beatrice is ill and sleeping right now. A visit at this time would be disruptive to her recovery. I'm happy to schedule something for next week when she's feeling better." Wanda Sue looked past him, saw nothing unusual, heard nothing. "Mr. Holcomb, this is an unannounced visit for a reason. I need to see Beatrice today." "I understand," Gerald said, "and I want to cooperate fully. But I also have a responsibility to protect her health. She's been running a fever for 3 days. Her doctor recommended rest and minimal stimulation. I can provide you with his contact information if you'd like to verify." Wanda Sue hesitated. Gerald waited. Patient? Reasonable. The posture of a man who had nothing to hide and everything documented. "I'll need to speak with my supervisor," Wanda Sue said. "Of course," Gerald said. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." He closed the door. Not a slam. Just a calm, deliberate close. Wanda Sue called her supervisor from the car, explained the situation, requested authorization to require entry. Her supervisor advised scheduling a follow-up visit rather than escalating to an emergency access order. The follow-up was calendared for 13 days out. September 25th. 1 week later, September 19th, Wanda Sue received a transfer notice. She was being reassigned to a different county caseload effective immediately. The stated reason: workload redistribution. The follow-up visit was never reassigned. September 25th came and went. Nobody knocked on the Holcomb door. When Deadfall called Wanda Sue that Tuesday evening, she was sitting in her car outside her new office. She hadn't gone inside yet. She'd been sitting there since she saw the news alert on her phone. Bikers gather at hospital for abused foster child. She knew before she clicked. She knew. "I tried," she said. Her voice was steady but small. "I showed up unannounced. He refused entry. My supervisor told me to schedule a follow-up instead of forcing it, and then they transferred me before the follow-up happened." She paused. "I kept my personal case notes. I'm not supposed to, but I did. I have them." "Can you send them to me?" Deadfall asked. "I already did," Wanda Sue said. "Sent them to the county prosecutor's office 20 minutes ago, along with the transfer notice and the supervisor's directive not to escalate." Deadfall heard her exhale. "I should have forced my way in," she said. "I should have made them fire me over it." "You tried," Deadfall said, "and you kept the records. That matters now." Rung 4, he thought. Punished attempt. The caseworker who pushed back got transferred before she could follow through. Millstone laid it out for the group at 7:02 p.m. War Room had moved to the chapter garage, Waukesha chapter headquarters, where the walls had seen 19 years of meetings and the coffee was always on. 4 rungs, he said. 4 different failures, all designed into the system. He held up one finger. Rung 1. Mrs. Borden files a report. CPS conducts a home visit with Gerald present. Beatrice says she's fine because her abuser is 3 feet away. Case closed in 9 days. That's not incompetence. That's procedure. Second finger. Rung 2. Pediatric nurse flags weight loss and bruising. Gerald produces a physician's letter blaming grief and selective eating. The flag goes into the file. No escalation triggered, because a letter from an authority figure overrides observable evidence. Third finger. Rung 3. Norma Jean Caldwell calls police. They respond. They believe Gerald at the door because he's a hospital volunteer with a badge on his table. She gets warned not to call again. The one person who tried was neutralized by the network that was supposed to protect. Fourth finger. Rung 4. Wanda Sue Farrell shows up unannounced, gets refused entry. Her supervisor tells her to schedule a follow-up instead of forcing access. Then she gets transferred before the follow-up happens. The caseworker who wouldn't back down got punished. Millstone lowered his hand. "This isn't a broken system," he said. "A broken system could be fixed. This system worked exactly as designed. It protected the abuser at every level, and when someone pushed back, the system removed them." Nobody disagreed. At 7:34 p.m., Gerald Owen Holcomb pulled into the Hartfield Community Hospital parking lot. He'd received a call from the ICU charge nurse 20 minutes earlier. Standard notification protocol. Beatrice's condition had stabilized. They wanted to discuss long-term care planning. He parked in the visitor lot. Row C, third space from the end. Blue Chevy Tahoe, license plate 7GK284. The same car Forrest had watched pull away from a hardware store curb 7 months ago. Gerald turned off the engine, looked out the windshield. The parking lot was full. 223 motorcycles, arranged in formation. Men in cuts standing in groups. Hell's Angels patches visible from where Gerald sat. He didn't get out of the car. For 11 minutes, he sat there. Engine off. Hands on the steering wheel. Watching. At 7:45 p.m., his phone rang. He answered. "Mr. Holcomb, this is Detective Aaron Vance with the Waukesha County Sheriff's Office. I need you to stay in your vehicle. Do not exit. Do not start the engine. Officers are approaching now." Gerald looked in his rearview mirror. 3 squad cars. Lights off. Moving slowly through the lot. He set the phone down. 2 officers approached from either side. Weapons holstered. Voices calm. "Mr. Holcomb, please step out of the vehicle. Hands visible." When Gerald stepped out, he was holding a coffee cup. Starbucks, venti, half full. Still warm. He'd stopped on the way to the hospital. Grande Pike Place with room for cream. Same order he'd been getting for 11 years. The cup was in his left hand when the officer said, "Hands behind your back." Gerald set it on the roof of the car. Carefully. Didn't spill. The same hands that had gripped an 8-year-old's arms hard enough to leave oval bruises. The same hands that had stitched a child's head wound in a kitchen to avoid a hospital visit. The same hands that had signed a probate petition with language designed to profit from incapacitation. He looked up at the officer. Expression calm. Reasonable. Like a man interrupted during a normal errand. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The officer didn't answer, just turned him around. Cuffs clicked into place. "Gerald Owen Holcomb, you are under arrest for child endangerment, felony assault, grand theft, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." 223 witnesses. The room at the chapter garage went quiet when Deadfall's call came in at 7:52 p.m. Millstone looked around the table. 15 men, all wearing their cuts, all waiting. "Holcomb's in custody," Deadfall said over speakerphone. "Charges, child endangerment, felony assault, grand theft, fraud, bail set at $364,000, same amount he tried to steal." Millstone looked around the room. "All in favor of maintaining the hospital presence until Beatrice's protective custody is transferred to the court?" For a moment, nothing. Just the ticking of the clock on the wall and the distant sound of a truck passing on the street outside. Every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single dissenting voice. 15 men voting unanimously to stay until a child they'd never met was safe. Nobody cheered. These weren't men who cheered. They just looked at each other with the particular exhaustion of people who've seen too much and fixed too little, and felt, for once, like the scales had shifted. The emergency motion was filed at 8:47 p.m. Judge Marianne Reese signed it at 9:03 p.m. 16 minutes. Emergency protective custody granted. Beatrice May Whitmore removed from Gerald Holcomb's guardianship effective immediately. Temporary custody transferred to Wisconsin Child Protective Services pending permanent placement hearing. The 30-day incapacitation clock stopped running at 9:04 p.m. 11 days before it would have opened the distribution window. By 10:12 p.m., Cinder had spoken with Beatrice's ICU team twice more. ICP readings continued stable. The surgical window had passed without intervention becoming necessary. Her grip strength showed marginal improvement in the right hand, small but measurable. The doctor used the word guarded when describing her prognosis. Not good, not poor, guarded. Cinder translated it for the parking lot at 10:30 p.m. Kept it accurate. Kept it real. "She's not out of the woods yet," he said. "But the pressure in her brain has stabilized. That's what we needed. The next 48 hours will tell us more." 223 men absorbed the information in silence. Norma Jean Caldwell stood in her driveway at 6:47 a.m. Wednesday morning when the local news van pulled up. She'd been standing there for 11 minutes. Deciding. The reporter, a young woman with a microphone and a cameraman, approached carefully. "Ma'am, we're covering the story about the bikers at the hospital. Did you know the family next door?" Norma Jean looked at the Holcomb house. 523 Quarry Bend Drive. Dark windows. Empty driveway. "I heard her screaming," she said. Quiet. Clear. 6 weeks ago. I called the police. They came and left. And then I got a letter telling me not to call again. The reporter's expression changed. "Would you be willing to say that on camera?" Norma Jean's hands shook, but she nodded. "Yes," she said. "I should have said it 6 weeks ago." The segment aired at noon. 43 seconds. Norma Jean's face, her voice, the exact address visible behind her. By 2 p.m., 3 other neighbors had come forward with similar stories. Sounds they'd heard, concerns they'd dismissed, questions they'd been afraid to ask. The Waukesha County Child Protective Services Office issued a statement at 3:15 p.m. Wednesday. "We take all allegations of child welfare concerns seriously. An internal review of case handling procedures has been initiated. We remain committed to the safety and well-being of all children in our care." 54 words. No mention of Beatrice by name. No acknowledgement of the 4 failed interventions. No mention of the caseworker who'd been transferred. Forrest read it on his phone while sitting in the ICU waiting room. Set the phone face down on the chair beside him. Didn't say a word. Scene 3. The unexpected support, Mrs. Ruthie. May Borden arrived at the hospital at 4:47 p.m. Wednesday afternoon. She came alone. Walked past the rows of motorcycles in the parking lot without hesitation. Took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Found Forrest in the waiting room outside room 314. "I'm Beatrice's teacher," she said. "I filed the first report, the one that got closed." Forrest stood up. "I know," he said. Mrs. Borden's hands were shaking. She held them together in front of her. "I should have kept trying," she said. "After they closed the case. I should have filed another report. I should have—" "You tried," Forrest said. "And when the system failed her, you didn't. You noticed. You reported. You did what you were supposed to do." Mrs. Borden looked at him, eyes wet. "Is she going to be okay?" "We don't know yet," Forrest said. "But she's got a chance. That's more than she had 3 days ago." Mrs. Borden nodded, pulled a small bag from her purse. Inside, crayons, a new drawing pad, a stuffed rabbit with floppy ears. "When she wakes up," Mrs. Borden said, "tell her these are from her class. Tell her we miss her." Forrest took the bag. "I'll tell her," he said. The story ran on page 4 of the Hartfield Courier Thursday morning, below a story about road construction delays on Highway 18, next to an advertisement for a hardware store clearance sale. Headline: Local foster parent arrested on abuse charges. The article was 6 column inches. It mentioned Beatrice's age incorrectly, listed as 7 instead of 8. It misspelled Holcomb's middle name. It didn't mention Della Pruitt at all. The correction ran the following Tuesday. Page 9. Millstone bought 4 copies, kept one in his cut pocket for the next year. A reminder of what official response looked like. Deadfall coordinated with the county prosecutor's office. Evidence documentation. Witness testimony organization. Chain of custody for the probate records, the bank statements, the email from Gerald to his attorney. By Friday morning, the case file was 214 pages. Every withdrawal documented. Every failed CPS intervention logged. Every witness statement notarized. The prosecutor called it the most organized evidence package I've seen in 11 years. Deadfall didn't smile. Just said, "Good, use it." Cinder maintained contact with Beatrice's medical team. Translated every update. Explained what guarded but stable meant versus critical. Explained why the doctors were waiting 72 hours before attempting to step down sedation. When family members of other ICU patients asked questions, confused by medical terminology, afraid to bother nurses, Cinder answered. Calm, patient, accurate. One father stopped him in the hallway Thursday evening. "You're with the bikers," he said. Not a question. "Yes, sir." "My daughter's in room 319. Meningitis. The doctor used a lot of words I didn't understand. Could you—" "Give me 5 minutes," Cinder said. "I'll get the attending and we'll go through it together." He did. Fieldstone coordinated with Hartfield Elementary. Beatrice's academic records. Attendance history. The report Mrs. Borden had filed. The email thanking her for her vigilance and reminding her about false reports. He forwarded everything to the County Board of Education with a 2-sentence cover note. Attached are the records showing a teacher who reported suspected abuse and was warned against filing false reports. That teacher was correct. The child nearly died. Perhaps your mandatory reporting training needs revision. The board scheduled an emergency review session for the following month. Fieldstone attended. Sat in the back, didn't speak unless asked a question. When the superintendent tried to deflect responsibility, Fieldstone raised his hand. "I taught high school for 9 years," he said. "I know what it's like to file a report and have nothing happen. I know what it's like to second-guess yourself. What I'm asking is simple. When a teacher is right and a child nearly dies anyway, what changes? The room went quiet. The policy revision passed 4 weeks later. Salt Lick compiled the financial documentation, created a timeline, cross-referenced every trust withdrawal with Gerald's personal expenditures. 2022 Polaris Ranger, $16,400, purchased with Beatrice's trust funds. Cabo San Lucas trip, $8,300, purchased with Beatrice's trust funds. Garage, addition, $19,200, purchased with Beatrice's trust funds. Total, $43,900 stolen from an 8-year-old who was eating 1 meal per day. Salt Lick sent the timeline to the prosecutor, sent a copy to the probate judge who'd approved the guardianship petition, sent a copy to the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families Oversight Board. He didn't editorialize, just the facts, the dates, the amounts. Let the numbers speak. Millstone coordinated housing. By Saturday morning, a safe placement had been arranged. Not another foster home. Not yet. A therapeutic group home in Waukesha, 40 minutes from Hartfield. Staff trained in trauma response. Private room. Medical transport to and from hospital visits until discharge. Rent covered by the club's emergency fund for the first 3 months. After that, Beatrice's trust, now under court-appointed independent oversight, would cover ongoing expenses. The address, 1847 Riverside Court, Waukesha. Millstone drove there himself, Friday afternoon. Walked the facility, met the staff, asked 17 questions. When he left, he shook the director's hand. "She's been through more than most adults survive," he said. "She needs people who understand that." "We do," the director said. Millstone looked at her for a long moment. "Good," he said. "Because if anything happens to her here, you'll answer to me." It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Beatrice took her first steps outside room 314 on Sunday morning. 11 days after admission, 4 days after Gerald's arrest. Physical therapy, supervised. A nurse on one side, a PT aide on the other. Forrest watched from the doorway. She walked slowly, carefully, testing her weight on legs that had been still for too long. Her right foot lifted clear of the floor. No drag, no shuffle. The sound that had followed her through 8 months of basement nights was gone. She made it 14 feet down the hallway before needing to rest. When she turned around, she saw Forrest. Smiled. Small, tentative, but real. "I walked," she said. "You did," Forrest said. She walked back. Same distance. Same steady steps. No shuffle drag. Just a child walking. Gerald Owen Holcomb was arraigned Monday morning. Waukesha County Circuit Court. Charges: child endangerment, Class F felony. Felony assault causing great bodily harm, Class E felony. Grand theft over $10,000, Class G felony. Wire fraud, federal charge pending. Bail, $364,000, the exact amount he'd attempted to steal from Beatrice's trust. He couldn't post it. Preliminary hearing scheduled for December 18th. Trial date set for February. The prosecutor, a woman named Ellen Hardwick with 19 years in the DA's office, had never lost a case with this much documentation. She didn't expect to start now. By Monday evening, the chapter's emergency fund had received $47,300 in donations. Not solicited, not requested, just people who'd seen the news. Read the story. decided to help. Anonymous donations from 3 neighboring counties, a check from a veterans organization in Milwaukee. Cash handed to Millstone in envelopes with no return address. The money went into a restricted account. Court-supervised. Designated for Beatrice's medical expenses, therapeutic care, and education. Every dollar documented. Every withdrawal approved by a judge. Transparent, accountable, protected. Beatrice was discharged from Hartfield Community Hospital on November 24th, 16 days after admission. Transferred to the therapeutic group home in Waukesha, with medical follow-up scheduled twice weekly. When the discharge nurse asked her how she was feeling, Beatrice thought about it for a long moment. "Safe," she said. Later, 3 weeks later, in a conversation with the court-appointed advocate, someone used the word saved. Beatrice never used that word. She hated it. She said it made her sound like something passive that happened to other people. What she said instead was, "Someone finally treated me like I was worth the trouble." That's the whole story, really. Forrest Tanner would tell you he's not a hero. He'd tell you he was just the first person to take Beatrice seriously. Think about how low that bar is. Think about how many people had already cleared it and turned away anyway. A teacher who filed a report and was warned about false complaints. A nurse who flagged weight loss and bruising and watched a physician's letter override observable evidence. A neighbor who called police and was told not to call again. A caseworker who showed up unannounced and was transferred before she could follow through. 4 different people. 4 different attempts. All within the same system that was supposed to protect an 8-year-old child. The system worked exactly as designed. It just didn't work for Beatrice. Beatrice didn't measure recovery in months. She measured it in firsts. First night, she slept without waking at 3 a.m., December 8th. 12 days after discharge. She told the night staff the next morning. They wrote it in her chart. Celebrated quietly. First morning, she made breakfast without checking the locks twice. December 14th. Scrambled eggs, slightly burned. She ate them anyway. Smiled at the taste. First time she laughed, really laughed, and didn't immediately feel guilty for it. December 19th. Something silly on TV. A cartoon character slipping on ice. The sound came out sudden and surprised, like she'd forgotten what laughter felt like. The counselor sitting with her cried, tried to hide it. Couldn't. First time she said no to something small and didn't flinch. December 23rd. Staff offered pizza for dinner. She asked for spaghetti instead. Voice quiet but clear. Nobody made it a big deal. They just made spaghetti. By the time January came, she had collected 14 of those firsts. 14 moments that proved she was becoming someone who could choose things again. January 11th, 3 p.m., Hartfield Elementary School. Mrs. Ruthie Mae Borden stood at her classroom door, watching Beatrice walk down the hallway. New backpack. Purple. Chosen by Beatrice herself, from a selection the therapeutic home staff had brought. She'd stood in front of the options for 4 minutes before choosing. The staff didn't rush her. She wore the right shoes for winter. Boots with good grip, warm socks underneath. A coat that fit. Gloves in the pockets. She walked steady. Clear, no shuffle drag. When she reached Mrs. Borden's classroom, she stopped. Looked up. "I'm ready," she said. Mrs. Borden smiled. Real. Warm. "I know you are," she said. "Welcome back." Beatrice walked to her desk. Same seat. 3rd row, second from the window. Someone had left a drawing on her desk. Not from Mrs. Borden, from another student. A crayon picture of a rainbow. The words, "We missed you," in uneven letters across the top. Beatrice picked it up, held it for a long moment, set it carefully in the front pocket of her new backpack. That night, she drew her own picture. First one since the hospital. Not a biker on a motorcycle, not wings on a jacket. Just a house. A door. A window with curtains. Someone standing in the doorway. Safe. Gerald Owen Holcomb was convicted on February 27th. Jury deliberation, 4 hours and 16 minutes. Sentencing, 18 years in state prison. No eligibility for parole for 12 years. Beatrice's trust, now under independent oversight, was restored to full value minus documented fraudulent withdrawals. Total remaining, $320,200. Protected. Held until her 21st birthday. Managed by a court-appointed fiduciary with quarterly audits. The Waukesha County CPS office implemented new protocols for unannounced visits. Caseworkers can no longer be transferred mid-case without supervisor review and documented handoff. Mandatory reporting training revised to include case studies where reports were accurate but dismissed. Della Faye Pruitt's case was reopened. Medical examiners' ruling amended from natural causes to undetermined pending investigation. Insurance payout frozen. Criminal investigation ongoing. Norma Jean Caldwell received a formal apology from the Neighborhood Watch Coordinator. The warning letter was retracted in writing. Mrs. Ruthie Mae Borden never received an apology, but the email warning her about false reports was removed from her personnel file. Expunged completely. Small. But it mattered. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever tried to help and been told you were overreacting, if you've ever heard something wrong and convinced yourself it wasn't your place to interfere, you know how easy it is to stay quiet. The system counts on that. It counts on people choosing comfort over confrontation. It counts on, "not my business," and "I'm sure someone else will handle it," and "maybe I'm wrong." Beatrice had 4 people who refused to stay quiet. They were still wrong about one thing. They thought the system would catch what they missed. The system didn't. There are Beatrices everywhere, in your town, on your street, in the classroom where you drop your kids off every morning. Children who are holding on by memorizing numbers they don't understand, because those numbers are the only evidence they have that something is wrong. Children who keep drawings of people who were kind to them once, for 8 minutes in a parking lot, because that kindness is the only thing that feels real anymore. You don't need 200 motorcycles to help them. You need to pay attention. Listen when a child hesitates. Ask the uncomfortable questions. And when you see something wrong, call someone. Not once. Not until they tell you to stop. Keep calling until someone listens. Because the difference between Beatrice surviving and Beatrice becoming another Della Pruitt was 11 days and 1 social worker who held a drawing under a desk lamp at 3 in the morning and decided to make a phone call. That's it. That's the margin. If you see a child who's too quiet, who counts things obsessively, who flinches at raised voices even when the words are neutral, who wears long sleeves in summer or the same clothes 3 days in a row, don't rationalize it. Call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline at 800-422-4453. You don't need proof. You need a concern. Let them investigate. Let them decide if it's nothing. But make the call, because probably nothing is what Della Pruitt's caseworker thought. And she died at 9 years old, weighing 61 pounds. Beatrice walks differently now. Not perfectly. Not without effort. The ribs healed with some residual discomfort that physical therapy is addressing. The neurological damage from the subdural hematoma left her with some fine motor coordination challenges that occupational therapy is working on. But when she walks down the hallway of the therapeutic home, when she goes to school in the morning, when she comes back in the afternoon, there's no shuffle drag. Both feet lift clear. Both feet land steady. It's the sound of a child who's learning what it feels like to move through the world without protecting herself from it. Beatrice doesn't call it healing. She hates that word. She says it makes recovery sound like something that happens to you instead of something you do. What she calls it is getting her legs back under her, a physical metaphor for something that has nothing to do with her body. Forrest thinks that's exactly right. If this story mattered to you, if it reminded you that one person paying attention can change everything, subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below. Who was your protector? Or what do you wish someone had done when you needed them? These stories matter because the Beatrices in your town are counting on someone to notice. Be that someone. Beatrice still has the drawing. The spelling test with the biker portrait on the back. She keeps it not as a reminder of what happened, but as proof that one person paying attention, one person who typed a license plate into his phone 7 months before he knew why it mattered, can change everything.
Here's what Gerald Holcomb did in legal terms and why it works. When Beatrice's mother died, she left a land trust worth $364,000. The trust was structured to pass to Beatrice at age 21, standard estate planning. Gerald petitioned probate court to become Beatrice's legal guardian and trustee. That's 2 roles. Guardian controls the child. Trustee controls the money. The petition included language establishing him as successor trustee with distribution authority in the event the beneficiary becomes permanently incapacitated or predeceases the trust term. Translation: if Beatrice became incapacitated for 30 days or died, Gerald could distribute the trust to himself as successor beneficiary. The probate court approved it in 7 minutes. No family to contest, no independent review of the language, just a guardian requesting authority to manage assets for a child in his care. That's how it works, and it's legal, until the guardian creates the incapacitation deliberately. 3 signs from Beatrice's case that you can recognize in your own community. The first, a foster parent or guardian who insists on being present for every medical appointment, including routine ones. Gerald attended Beatrice's dental cleaning and cited attachment disorder when the dentist asked to speak with her alone. That's not protection. That's a lid. Children need private time with professionals. When a guardian prevents it consistently, ask why. The second, a child withdrawn from school on illness grounds with no independent medical verification. Beatrice was pulled 11 days before hospitalization. Della was pulled 3 weeks before death. Both times, no doctor's note, no independent verification, just the guardian's word. When school contact is eliminated suddenly, alarm bells should ring. The third, documented weight loss, recurring injuries attributed to falls, and behavioral withdrawal, all in the same child over the same period with the same guardian present at every review. Each symptom alone triggers concern. All three together is a pattern. It was a pattern with Della. It was a pattern with Beatrice. You watched this story because something in it resonated. Maybe you've seen a child who counts ceiling tiles obsessively and didn't know what to name it. Now you do. That's not a small thing. Knowing the name of something is the first step to doing something about it. Beatrice kept a drawing, a pencil sketch of someone who sat with her on a curb for 8 minutes and split a sandwich. She kept it not because he saved her that day, but because he remembered her license plate number when everyone else looked away. That decision, typing 7 digits into a phone, was the difference between survival and becoming another statistic. You can be that person, the one who remembers, the one who types the number, the one who makes the call. Pay attention. One person is enough.